good night, wherever you are. Today, we're talking about when to start booking podcasts to promote your book. And this is a part of the From Pen to Podium series that I've been doing on my LinkedIn page, La-Vonne, as you can see my name written right here on LinkedIn. Let's dive straight into it and get into any sort of introductions later. So, when do you want to start booking podcasts to promote your book? What we're going to be discussing today is how you can actually, as I said, start booking podcasts to promote your book. And we're going to be discussing the ways that you can prepare yourself to be able to actually go out there and get these podcasts. Also, the ways that you can prepare your material to connect with people who would be able to feature you on their podcasts. And finally, how you can actually prepare your skills to be presenting. Okay. Let me just make sure that my screen is being shared and remind you of exactly who we are and what we're doing. So we are in the From Pen to Podium series, which is happening live currently on LinkedIn. Also, I am streaming on my Facebook page, but the hub is on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me further, check me out on LinkedIn. And this series is specifically public speaking strategies for Black women authors. It is for you if you've authored a book and you're actively seeking ways to promote it in the new year. It's for you if you've been focused on the solitary act of writing and you now face the challenge of transitioning to speaking across diverse platforms, or if you feel especially motivated to invest in your speaking skills right now because you understand how important it is to grow your influence as a thought leader in the public space. What you're gaining from this series, this video today, and if you weren't able to watch the videos from the last 2 days, those videos had to do with how to gain influence as a speaker. And then the second one was why you struggle with actually putting yourself out there. And we dealt with some of the ways to tackle imposter syndrome. So if you weren't able to see those videos, you want to go back and check them out, because what you're going to get from those videos and this video today is, well, this live session today is how to harness the potency of public speaking to resonate as an impactful speaker. You want resonance. That's what you want to do when you're speaking, when you're promoting yourself, when you're talking about your book, and when you're putting yourself out there. You're also going to gain practical tools to authentically overcome imposter syndrome. We spoke about that in yesterday's session. And you're also going to learn powerful strategies to effectively promote your book through podcasts so that your message resonates far and wide. And that's what we're covering this day, today. Who am I and why should I care, for those of you who are just here? If you want to know more about who I am and you don't want to listen to this spiel right now, go click the link in my bio. It is bit.ly/speak from the soul coaching, but it's also just there. Go and click on it. You'll get a clear idea of who I am and what I offer. But just to let you know, for those of you who weren't on in the last 2 days, my name is La-Vonne. I am a public speaking coach for Black women. And the achievements that I have that give me the opportunity to support you in your public speaking skills, your confidence skills, and your communication skills are right now here on the screen. I'm an international keynote speaker and workshop facilitator, which means that I have global experience with speaking on stages in front of audiences of multiple cultures. So I can support you with tailoring your message to fit particular circumstances, no matter which part of the world you are, and being able to do that in a very sensitive way. I'm also a trained radio and television presenter, which means that I can support you with your media appearances and preparing for, in this case, we're talking specifically about podcasts. Podcasts are the radio of the 21st century. So I can support you with your media preparations. I'm also an event host and a past smart pageant queen. I know how to engage audiences in a way that keeps them activated, alive, entertained, and I can support you as well in doing that if that is your goal in public speaking. I'm a national poetry competition winner. I know how to make language magical, and I can support you in doing the same so that when you speak, you are able to charm, enchant, and ultimately compel the people you're speaking to do exactly what you want them to do based on your particular mission in life. I'm a dancer, a singer, an actress, and a performing artist. So I have a whole range of tools, from vocal warm-ups to physical warm-ups, as well as specific techniques from acting that I can offer you as skills to add to your toolkit as a public speaker. I'm a trained architect and product designer. That's actually what my first and second degrees are in. I've also trained in all of these other things as well. But my first degree was a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture, and I have a Master's of Design in Designed Objects. And from both of those degrees, what I have learned more than anything else, to sum it up very quickly, is I can create a very simple explanation of extremely complex ideas. And as a motivational speaker, as a public speaker, as an author, as someone who is putting themselves out there, you want to be able to have that skill where you can break down complex ideas into simple, bite-sized pieces so that your audience is actually able to stay in touch with you. I'm bilingual, hablo español, porque vivo aquí en México. Ahora estoy en Tulum, México, y ya tengo 3 años en México. I'm Spanish speaking as well as English speaking. And though I don't teach Spanish as part of my public speaking offer, what I do is I offer you the opportunity to really look at the linguistic breakdown of language, so that every word that you use, you are using from a place of impact and understanding, even down to the etymological level. I'm a digital nomad and a travel enthusiast. I live everywhere and nowhere. And so I'm interacting with people from multiple cultures on a daily basis. Right where I live in Tulum right now, I promise you I've met at least people from 15 different countries. And that gives me a global perspective that also is going to translate into how I coach you and support you in becoming a globally effective speaker. And last but not least, I'm a yoga practitioner and bikini fitness athlete. I practice Ashtanga yoga daily, and I've also competed as a bikini fitness athlete and medaled in that regard. And what that means is I have mastered the skill of not just being confident on the outside, but also on the inside, and being able to find a good alignment between inner and outer confidence, so that whenever you're speaking, you're not just speaking from gestures or from some tip that someone told you on YouTube, but you're speaking from a really centered place. Okay, who do I serve? Hopefully you. I serve Black women who are probably feeling disconnected from their identity, lacking confidence. Maybe you're not being assertive enough. Maybe you're writing boring speeches. Maybe you experience social anxiety. And I help you to get clear on your core message. I help you to perfect your unique style of presenting. I help you to learn anxiety reducing techniques. I help you to master emotional engagement, and I help you to adapt easily in any social context. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can adapt in the social context of a podcast, which I know many people are looking into this idea of how can you leverage podcasts to promote yourself and to promote your brand and your message. So let's get into it. When to start promoting through podcasts and through your book. If you're live with me, I just want to do a little quick check-in to see who's here. If I can see in the chat today, there have been times when I haven't seen the chat, but I think I just heard some messages coming on my phone. Let me just check, because I want to make sure that I am in touch and really being able to connect with you. So if you're here live, I want to thank you so much for being here. I see Neka is here. Thank you so much, Neka, for being here. I can see you on my phone. For whatever reason, I cannot see you on my computer, but I'll just keep my phone open so I can see the messages that you're sending. And yeah, we're going to jump right into it. This one is probably going to be a quicker one than the last couple ones that we've done. So today is, first of all, when you want to start booking podcasts to promote your book. Well, you want to first do it when your message is clear. And if you've been a part of this series, on the first day, which would have been Wednesday, January 3rd, I did a recast on January 4th, Thursday. So if you want to go back and check my live videos, you can do that. That one was talking about how you can gain influence as an author. And one of the first things that I said was we want to get very clear on our core message. You want to make sure that by the time you are putting yourself out there to book podcasts, it's not an immediate process, but you still want to make sure that you have a clear idea of what your message is. Why? Because you're going to want to be able to put together what we call a podcast one sheet. to send to podcast owners, hosts, or managers for them to be able to book you. You want that podcast one sheet to be as compelling as possible. I have with me today an example of a podcast one sheet, my own, or I just used myself as an example to create one. So I'm going to go into that right now. Let me just get that up for you quickly. And we're going to look at what that looks like so that you can actually fashion one for yourself. I'd be very happy to share the template with you. If you message me on LinkedIn, no problem at all, because sharing is caring. So let me just get that up on the screen. Quickly as possible. Let me see if you can see what Neka is saying. Okay, let me see. Here we go, present. Got it. All right. Okay, we're not where I want us to be. Let me just make sure that we're sharing the right thing. Perfect. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. We're here now. Neka was asking what kind of poetry do I do? So I do spoken word poetry. And I've done spoken word poetry in Jamaica. My poetry is much more about being lyrical and punny than anything else. And in 2005, about 10 years ago, I won an award as Poet of the Year in Jamaica as well, where I'm from. And there are videos of me performing online. You can look on YouTube, La-Vonne Poetry or Spoken Word, and you'll find some stuff as well. And maybe at the end of it, I'll perform a little piece. Why not? So we're looking at this podcast one sheet, and this is just an example, a very basic example of what a podcast one sheet can look like for you. Okay, so once your message is clear, which is you did the exercises that we did in the session called How to Gain Influence as a New Author in 2024, you got your core message, you got your zones of influence, you got your basic idea of your soul synopsis, so you know some of your speaking topics. This is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to come and create a sheet that looks like this, that has a couple of elements. First of all, you're going to want to be sure to have an element that tells the podcasters more or less who you are and what category you fit in. And of course, as a multifaceted woman, we probably might have 5 versions of this depending on exactly who we're targeting. In this context, I am presenting myself as a confidence and speaking coach, and my name is big and bold, and there's a photo of me looking engaging. You want to have contact information, of course, a biography, some suggested topics, and then some sample interview questions. Now, the biography is something that you want to be possibly read immediately onto the podcast. So you want to put a biography in such a way that if the podcast host doesn't even have time to edit or change it to third person, they can literally read it as it is and it still sounds very good. So you definitely want it to be in the third person, that is talking about yourself as if you're not yourself, not I am, so that when it's read very clearly. So in this one, my biography says, La-Vonne is on a mission to empower Black women as a public speaking, confidence, and communication coach. She orchestrates a journey from self-centered to radiantly confident, infusing spirituality and sustainable wellness into the process of honing speaking skills. With a goal to liberate high-achieving Black women from anxiety and overwhelm, Cherise transforms them into masters of compassionate communication. Her coaching is the key to speaking truth with clarity and confidence in both personal and professional relationships. Her approach, and we can pause right there, there's more. And you also want to be sure that there are certain levels where if it gets cut off at a certain point, there's still enough information that the people who are listening can understand who you are. I won't go into it because I already just gave you my bio and you have an idea of who I am already. Something of importance to note in the bio, though, is you really want to make sure that it's as engaging as possible, meaning that it really talks to your specific audience. So Black woman, high achieving Black woman, right? So that if there is a high achieving Black woman who is your audience, maybe your book is for Black women, or let's say you've written a book on poetry, which is supporting people in the artistic creation of life, whether or not they're artists, you might want to very much say for the frustrated artist or for the creative person who never lived an artistic life. Whatever it is, you want to be sure that in your bio you have an awareness of who you are specifically targeting. Why does this matter? We're using these podcasts not just to have beautiful conversations with other humans. Yes, that is going to happen. But we're also using these podcasts as an opportunity to promote a very specific situation. In your case, this situation is you're an author wanting to promote yourself. So we're using your podcast to target the people who would be most interested in purchasing your book. So you're going to want to be sure to make sure to include the specific demographic of who that is in your own biography. That's one thing. Another thing is you want to make sure that you have some sort of catchy terminology that sums up, in a sense, who you are and what you do. In my case, it's from self-centered to radiantly confident. That's in one very short, 5-word phrase. I've been able to say exactly what I do. I help you go from censored to confident, from censored to confident, from censored to confident. It's that simple, okay? And then a third thing that you want to do is you want to qualify yourself. So I didn't read this part below, but I'll go now. Drawing from her background in architecture and design, she offers a methodical yet spirited path to turning traditional ideas upside down. Bring in some of what you've actually achieved into it. So the first thing is make sure that your biography very clearly states who your demographic is, who you serve. Secondly, make sure that there is some sort of very catchy and succinct way to say exactly what you do. And then thirdly, be sure to draw on your experience and your expertise so that you are qualified in the ears of the listener. Cool beans? Perfect. So that's number one, just checking my notes here. Oh, I'm sniffly because I'm right in front of the AC today, and it's just like making me sniffly. Okay, so let's move on to another section that it's going to be important. You want to have some suggested topics. And another thing to note here is I put this one here, travel and lifestyle, because this is what I want you to avoid. I want you to avoid just putting a general title of a topic. And instead, I want you to put it in a phrase/sentence format that talks a little bit more about how you specifically target and talk about that topic, okay? So for example, instead of just saying communication here, I say the importance of communication training for professional Black women. That's something I'm pushing. So what is your book about? Or what is your particular coaching service about? In this section, you want to be sure to bring sort of a phrase into that. It's not just 2 words or a 1-word title, it's a phrase. You also want to look at, for example, maintaining spirituality and wellness practices, confidence building and crafting the life you want. Why this matters? This matters because, again, when you are putting yourself in front of someone who has a podcast, you want to, 1, make the decision as easy as possible. And 2, you want to make sure that the script writers are able to give you optimal questions to get to the specific things that you want to say. Again, remember the purpose you're on this podcast. You're here for a very specific reason. You have a core message that you need to share. You want to make sure that if the interviewer is creating questions for you, the questions that they create for you are most relevant to what it is your core message is. And so you want to be able to give as much information as possible in a succinct, bite-sized way so as not to overwhelm. Finally, we're going to go down to sample interview questions. Now, podcasters may not always use this, and I'm doing this because I also have experience managing guests on podcasts. And so I'm giving you the behind the scenes. I was actually a script writer for a podcast, and I'm giving you behind the scenes of what the process is. When our guests came with specific questions, it was almost always that much easier for us to create the script. ahead of time. Some podcasts are directly off the cuff, just in the moment, but most often podcasts actually have a general flow that they try to follow. You're going to want to be able to offer some sample questions that, if it is that, again, the script writers or the podcast guest is just not necessarily interested in taking extra time to point out these things, to create these questions for you, that you're actually able to get the questions that point directly to you. No, this doesn't have to be challenging. Sometimes you may feel like, I don't know what I would ask myself. Ask ChatGPT. Use technology and AI to your advantage. I always suggest that. A lot of times people think that AI means that you're actually not being engaged and you might just be handing over your skill to a robot. Absolutely not. I believe in a hybrid approach where, with your intelligence, your purpose, and your understanding of what you're about, you're able to put very detailed and specific prompts into this machine that you then take the information, you look at it, you decide what works, what doesn't work, you tweak it, and then you make it work to your advantage. So, for example, how you could come up with some interview questions. If you already know your suggested topics, which you would get from your zones of influence, when we did the core message exercise 2 videos ago, again, go back and check that video if you didn't, which is how to gain influence as a new author in 2024. That those zone of influence questions that you had, or that core message list that you had, that gives you a bunch of suggested topics that you can talk about. So we're not taking this off the top of our head. This is something that we've already documented. This is something that we've already done. We already know this, okay? So you have your suggested topics. Punch those topics into ChatGPT. Say, hey, ChatGPT, I am X and X a person. I'm a public speaking, confidence, and communication coach, and I'm going on a podcast talking about these topics, blah, 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 blah. Please offer me 3 questions per topic that the host can ask me that are detailed, conversational, and gives me the opportunity to give examples. And then see what it gives back to you, and go through, filter through and tweak and see what you want to do to allow yourself to actually come up to questions that really would get you to where you want to go. Okay, cool. Screenshot this if you want. If you would like me to send this, this is in Canva. I can send you this Canva document. You can use it to your advantage, no strings attached. Just send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll send it to you. And it can be helpful, at least as a basis. But that's basically the overall idea of what you want to have on your podcast one sheet. You want your name, you want your title, you want a biography, you want suggested topics, you want sample interview questions, you want contact information. What I don't have here that you can also include, which is dependent on the level of influence and impact that you already have. If part of what you're leveraging is the fact that you have a great social media following, so maybe you have X amount of followers or X amount of views. So basically you're saying to the podcast host, hey, I'm a great choice because I already have a lot of publicity. You'd want to put that on here as well. So maybe you might have a section that just says Facebook, X amount of followers, Instagram, X amount of followers, YouTube, X amount of views, if that's where you are and what you have. You want to put some high achievements. You know, if you've published a book already, you might want to put that there as well. And if that book has performed well, you might also want to put that there as well. So you want to put as well achievements that you have that would make you even that much more interesting to the podcast host. However, recognizing that this is simply just basically an advertisement to get you to start having a conversation. Later on, you would have an opportunity to go more detail and say, okay, hey, these are things I would like you to include. But at least with this basic one sheet, a potential podcast host can see very clearly who you are and what you're offering and why they would want to have you. All right, let me just check on my messages over here. I seem to have disconnected from the Wi-Fi on my phone. My Wi-Fi, how do you call it? Not a browser, the thingamabob. The word is slipping me right now, is outside of my office. And sometimes it has a challenge bending the corner to get to my phone. So this is what happens when you live in concrete homes. When you live in concrete homes, the Wi-Fi sometimes just disconnects. But on my laptop, it's fine. It's just on my phone. Sometimes it disconnects, and I just want to check the messages. So if you're here watching live or if you're watching later and this has been interesting so far, please let me know. Say interesting, say yes, say amazing. Also, if you have any questions, I am watching my comments on LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, let me know. And while I'm here, if I can respond, I can. Let me just check what Neka is saying. Neka is saying I'm truly multi-talented. Thank you, Neka. This is something that I actually had to learn to accept about myself. It's tricky sometimes when you're multi-talented. And I also saw in your your LinkedIn profile that you said prolific wearer of many hats or something like that. So I think you can relate. Oftentimes people want us to put us in one box. You know, they're saying jack of all trades, master of none. I actually change it to jack of all trades, therefore master of one unique. So I am a master of my one unique way of being and doing things that pulls on all of the different experiences that I have. In fact, life is literally one big conglomeration of everything. There is no separation in life as much as we try to think of it that way. We really are one with everything. And I can get very esoteric with it because I like that. I see myself as one with the air around me. It literally enters my body and leaves my body. I am one with the air around me. I am one with the chair that I'm sitting on because it is supporting my very expression in this moment. And so if we think about the subjects that we may study in school, a lot of times people might say, oh, I'm good at math, or I'm good at English, or I'm good at art. And I've always said I'm good at life. And I'm good at seeing life from all the different perspectives. And I'm good at recognizing that life itself is as much math as it is as much art, as it is as much science, as it is as much spirituality. And I just find it absolutely fascinating to look and go as deep as possible as I can on the different ways that we can interpret life. And so that's what I love to do. And I also know that's what makes me good at what I do as a coach, because it's not one track, it's not one dimensional, it really is multidimensional. Thank you for saying that. Neka says that she'd love to hear my poetry. Neka has 2 YouTube channels. Well, share your YouTube channel here, Neka, so that if anyone's looking later on, they can see your podcast style channel. Okie dokie. Next, moving along to the second time when it would be good for you to start booking podcasts as a promotion strategy for your book. Let me just make sure that I am in presentation mode. Perfecto. Excellent. And we are on. I'm so glad I got the hang of sharing this, because on the first day I was here talking, thinking I was sharing and I wasn't. So we just went to when your message is clear, and you know your message is clear when you can fit it all on one sheet. You also want to start booking, obviously, when you know who to talk to. Okay, so you know who to talk to. What does this mean? This means you know where to go to book podcasts. And so we're talking about podcast directory here. So there are three ways. There are many ways that you can book podcasts. And sometimes perhaps it might feel a little bit overwhelming, right? I don't know if it could feel a little bit overwhelming. Okay, I want to be on podcasts. How do I get on podcasts? Do I have to start my own podcast? First and foremost, you do not need to start your own podcast in order to benefit from podcasting as a promotion strategy or a publicity strategy. That's one myth I want to break completely. It goes a little bit deeper. You don't have to do everything on your own in order to benefit from any of these promotion strategies. So I know, as multifaceted creators, as people who technically are very capable, who says, yeah, I can figure out the technology. Yeah, I can do the design. Yeah, I can write a speech. Sure, you can. You could. And You can also direct your energy to delivering exactly what it is you want to deliver, which is your message, or which is your book, or which is your coaching, or whatever it is. And allow yourself to leverage connections, community, cooperation in order to actually promote yourself. So you want to start booking podcasts as a promotion strategy for your book when you know who to talk to. Now, there may be a couple of ways that you know who to talk to. One, you're probably a podcast geek yourself, and you've been listening to a bunch of people who you really resonate with, and you go to their podcast and you find their contact information and you do that. And you do that times 100, and it takes time and it's a little bit stressful. And sure, you can do it that way. That's one. Two, you can also go on to Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, and there are groups that specifically handle these things. So you might find a group that says speakers connecting speakers, or looking for podcast guests, or just groups of people in your industry, and present yourself. Obviously, being sure to give value to the group as well, or depending on the context of the group, it could just be a group where it's like, hey, I do this and I'm available. Again, that's another way that you can do it. A little bit of a shot in the dark sometimes and a lot of energy, but still another way you can do it. And then the third way that you can find out who you want to talk to is you can use services. So you can use online podcast directory services. They're actually services of people who you can hire to, one, help you create that podcast one sheet in the most effective way. Two, research the databases of podcasts that they have. And you also can do this research as well. You can go on Google and you can literally just look up podcast databases and you can find any podcast you want. But these services will help you to come up with your one sheet. They'll help you they will do all the hard work and heavy lifting of looking at the databases of who might be most aligned with you, i.e., which listening audience would be most aligned with what it is you have to offer. And then on your behalf, actually manage the booking of the podcasts. Now, that is something that I offer as well as a part of my services of coaching. When my clients, well, actually guests, because they become guests by the end of it. When my clients have gotten to a place where they are clear enough on their message, and they have also accessed point number 3, which we're going to get to very soon, I support them in the process of creating that podcast one sheet and in connecting with the directory of potential podcasts that actually you can be featured on. So this is the second one. You know who to talk to. So start booking podcasts once you know who to talk to. And again, like I told you, you can do that by yourself. You can do it yourself way, or you can hire services that actually support you in that. Number 3, I can't believe we're at 1:48 already. So that means we've been on here for about half an hour. It's like time just flies. Time just flies. I keep saying, oh, this is just going to be a quick little lunchtime meeting. And then it goes a little bit quickly. And I specifically kept my points just to 3, even though there's so many more, because I wanted to keep it short. But it's just the value, and I can't stop sharing what I know because I want you to be able to benefit from this information as much as possible. Let's look at the third time when to start booking podcasts to promote your book and other strategies. You want to start booking podcasts when you are confident that you can deliver. Why does that matter? First impressions are very important. Now, let me get this straight. We don't want to wait until we think we're perfect before we start booking podcasts. In fact, from the moment that you've gotten your message clear, I would suggest that you start putting out the call. So once you've created a one sheet, even if you don't think you've perfected your public speaking skills yet, still go looking, still hire that service, or still start reaching out to podcast owners and hosts right away. Partially because it does take a process at times to actually get onto a podcast. It's not always this week to next week. It can happen that way depending on the size of the podcast, but usually it's more a process of weeks to months that you might be waiting. So once number 1 is clear, you definitely want to start going and putting out. But in the meantime, as you are putting yourself out there, you want to make sure you're practicing so that you can deliver. And what do I mean by you can deliver? It means that the moment the mic is on, when that host is speaking to you, you can respond clearly and coherently to their questions. You can direct the conversation in the way you want it to go, even if the host is not going in that way. And you can also have a very clear call to action for the listeners. Okay, so you can respond, you can direct, and you can call to act. Those are 3 elements of you being able to deliver. How does this work? Well, part of the way when it comes, let's go into the first one. The first one is that you can respond. I did this a little bit, was it on day 1 or day 2? How to gain influence as a new author? Yes. How to gain influence as a new author in 2024. Again, if you want to go look back on my LinkedIn page for that video, you should be able to find it. I spoke about what I call the rapid response technique, which is a proprietary method that I've developed for my clients to help them answer questions as efficiently and clearly and coherently as possible. RAPID, RAPID, stands for recognize, assert, point out, illustrate, and direct. R, recognize, A, assert, P, point out, I, illustrate, and D, direct. You want to recognize the context that you're on, who you're talking to, the general context of what you're talking about, more on a global, wider scale. You want to assert your position. You want to point out the key elements of your position. You want to illustrate each point, and then you want to direct. Coming back to how you can deliver, so that's the first part. I said when you want to deliver, you want to be able to respond very clearly to the host as eloquently as possible. You also want to understanding how to deliver and respond very clearly to the host also comes to being able to manage your nerves, being able to manage yourself, being able to manage your emotions, and most importantly, being able to impact the emotions of the person that you're speaking to. We are emotional beings as humans. No matter what anyone thinks or anyone wants to say, we are ultimately and primarily emotional. Everything we do because of the emotional impact we imagine that it will have on us. Every single thing we do because of the emotional impact we imagine it will have on us. So as a speaker, as much as you want to be able to check the box of responding to a question, you don't just want to check the box of responding to a question. You also want to check the box of connecting with the heart of the person who you're speaking to. And so being able to deliver is not just about being able to have the answers set up to the questions that you already gave on your call sheet, on your one sheet. Being able to respond is also being able to, from a place of genuine feeling, engage with the people that you're speaking to. And that's something that public speaking coaching can help you with. If you're interested in being one of my 4 clients for this next quarter, well, my 4 more clients, because I have 4 more spaces available, hit the link in my bio and you'll see what my coaching entails and the way I manage it. I have a 5C framework to go from censored to confident as a Black woman that takes you through clarity, through compassion, through consciousness, through conviction, and also through to confidence. So click the link in bio to learn more and book a chemistry call with me. I am booking calls this Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully we're starting fresh on January 11th. So let's go back to sharing screen. So you want to start booking the podcast when you know you can deliver, by being able to respond clearly, by being able to direct the conversation where you want to go. So you are going to want to be able to have the skill that even if the person you're talking to is taking things in a whole 180 direction to what your core message is, you have practiced the skill to actually compassionately redirect the conversation to where you want it to go. And finally, you're also going to want to be able to direct and give a clear call to action to whoever your audience is. Okay? That's pretty much it. So going back, when to start booking podcasts, when your message is clear, when you know who to talk to, and when you can deliver. And coaching helps with that. If you're interested in coaching, hit me up. Talking about directing clearly, call to action. I want you to connect with me for more content. I want you to go hit the link in my bio and book a chemistry call with me to find out more about what I do and what I offer. But just to remind you, in case you missed these events and these shows, you can go back and check out these live videos that I did. They will be up for some time. They will not be up for forever. Eventually, I will move them to paid content. So go and check them out when you can. How to Gain Influence as a New Author in 2024, which happened go look for it on January 4th in the morning. Why you struggle with being visible as a multifaceted Black woman, and then when to start booking podcasts to promote your book and other strategies. This has been the Pen to Podium series. I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me. I want to encourage you to reach out to me if you want to connect for any reason, including coaching. And I want to encourage you as a Black woman in your personal life and your professional life to really consider how you're coming into alignment from a heart space, from a mind space, from a body space, from a spiritual space, and from an energetic space, so that everything you communicate is as clear and concise and also effective as possible. I will see you when I see you on my page. Follow me on LinkedIn for more content. And please book a chemistry call with me right away if you're ready to make 2024 the year that you go out there as a confident public speaker on podcasts, on stages, and in any other realm. Hasta luego. Ciao.